Hey everybody, this is Rob Gauthier, the ET Whisperer, and welcome to the Galactic Channelings. I want to welcome all of you back to the Galactic Channelings. Now, it's been a while since we've done these, but these, as well as all my personal sessions with people, are what afforded me the ability to channel over 1,000 ET consciousnesses. At this point, I'm sure it's a lot more than that, but I don't really keep track counting anymore. These beings come from across the galaxy to give us a very unique perspective. Each race has their own connection to humans. Some don't even have connections to humans. They just see us from afar and share their perspective from that. And a lot of these energies will resonate with a lot of people because they are galactic beings who are working with humans, helping us, so they understand and know us. Others will not be resonant. And the one race that comes to mind when I think of a lot of people not having a great time with that specific channeling was the Theta White Reptilians when they came and gave their perspective of humans. Now, to be fair, there was a lot of accuracy in that message, but the delivery was a bit harsh, as most of you know reptilians can do sometimes. They basically told us that the Earth experience was tainted because we did not appreciate or love each other, we didn't take care of each other, and that's why they couldn't see us as equals or do anything with us as a race. So it was hard to hear, but it rang through with a lot of resonance. If we treated each other equal and better and loved each other, we would do amazing things. Regardless if you feel something or hear something that you resonate with or not, at very least you will have an opportunity to hear a legitimate and individual perspective about either current events and topics that are happening on Earth or what these beings think about humans and Earth in general. So I hope all of you enjoy, and welcome back to the Galactic Channelings. Thank you guys for being here.
Greetings to all, this is Aridif, that is A-R-I-D-I-F, and this is its spirit. We understand that all of you desire to speak to yet another entity in the co-creation of your galactic forms of channeling, and the entity that we have brought forward this day works as a co-creation mechanism between human consciousness and those that are of the grey variety. This entity has been more or less such as in between for many of these experiences that humans have regarding soul levels, but also ones that are more in-depth spiritual. Now we understand, by expressing the term greys, many humans believe that Zeta Reticuli entities are the one and only grey beings that exist throughout this galaxy, but as we have shared previously, this is not the case. There are many varieties of entities that are perceived as grey. These entities we would perceive as the humanoid grey archetype of consciousness. Physically, they are taking that archetype of physicality and creating, and from a soul level, you have the simple spectrum of the physical archetype of these entities as you would in all, such as reptilian beings, being that of the type 1 all of the way to the most malevolent, as you would humanoids, that go from the very highest spectrum of type 1 to the very most disconnected form of type 2 malevolent in 100% form of malevolency, and all that are in between. Now, this entity itself works in the type 2 spectrum at what we would deem approximately 75 to 80% benevolency. This does not mean that the rest of it is malevolent, nor does it mean it is only capable of that percentage of benevolence. What we mean is if you take a scale from 0% to 100% of benevolency, what we mean is those that are 100% are, of course, that which in our own perspective would be that of the Type 1 variety, those who perceive oneness and would not interfere with the free will of any entity and apply their own consciousness as such, and those that are Type 2 highly malevolent at 0%, and this is approximately at 75%. These consciousnesses work deeply between that construct of humans and grey archetypes for the benefit of humans, for the benefit of greys, and for the benefit of their own collective consciousness. We'll bring him forward and let him express. 1 minute.
Hello, humans. It is a good pleasure and good communication. Why are we here? Why do we speak between humans and grey beings? Grey beings are that who work with DNA of humans for the most part, and humans are humans and need to be watched after. This is the perspective many of you have. This is incorrect. Humans are not just humans. They are beings who have family upon the stars in all angles and all degrees. Greys are beings who are geneticists in pockets, but in other pockets are technological advanced beings who are loving, simple beings who are extremely intelligent or extremely emotionally contingent beings. All of these things are part of the experience of grey. Now, what the grey archetype does hold in several parts, just as all humans have capacity for good and evil, and all humans have the ability to love and to hate. All grey beings have less of an emotional spectrum than humans, some of these narrow and small, to where humans think they have no emotions. Others are largely as the more less emotional human beings. And all things that go between this and that are truthful and honest and rectifiable and also presentable as studying, testing, and seeing for yourself. So why do these beings care for humans if they are not genetically testing? Many of them are genetically testing. Over 38% of the grey beings that work with humans hold genetic capacity, genetic desires, genetic testing, and doing so for their race to not be dead. If their race did not find a new pathway instead of children making, or instead of birthing, they would be dead. The genetic coding in grey beings who come from other matrix, or come from this matrix but have had hard lifetimes, reach the grey body type in one of two ways. One, they are born with it because both of their genetic ancestors also had that body type. But many beings who were similar to human beings and turned into the beings who are grey went through heavy DNA mutation. Most of the mutation that's done with this is due to radioactivity from gamma wave burst or from failures of electromagnetic fields in planets where beings hold electromagnetic fields energetically and inside of them. You have a heart, you have a brain, you have lungs, you have a spine, and all of these things work heavily with electromagnetic energies. If Earth were to have a failure of the electromagnetic grid, there would be mass casualties or mass mutations depending on how severe the failure was. So the mutations from these beings are often done through means of intense and brutal forms of physicality, but are also done because at one level of a soul consciousness in its purity desires a change quickly and fastly that the physical body itself could not get to by itself. Imagine yourself as a human being desiring to be the next version of human beings but not having a way to do it. Your scientists agree it could not be done. Your spiritual leaders say you can only pray. Your personal instincts tell you everything you think you cannot push the evolution to the next level. These beings found a way to do so quickly and to do so in large steps. This means that these once human forms and humanoid consciousness is developed an extremophile form of consciousness. Animals in your planet mostly live on the surface or in water. Most of them live between their temperatures of -75 Celsius and 100 degrees Celsius, and some of these beings live in higher than 100 degrees, beyond the boiling point of your liquid water, can live on thermal vents in the ocean miles deep with pressure that would crush the human body instantly, with the water pressure that would destroy your greatest submarine and spacecraft instantly. These beings survive and live, the extreme forms of beings who live similarly at the depths of ocean in temperatures that are lower than freezing, but cannot freeze because the pressure is too great, still live and thrive. They do so from adaptation, but what happens if adaptation is a slower process? Then you become gray archetype through mutation. We give our great respect to beings who are willing to go through such atrocities and loss of life, and also go through graphic changes inside of their own personal soul matrix consciousness, the lowering of the energy that is emotions, the lower of drive to reproduce, the lower of conscious thought of an emotion in order to replace it with scientific forms of thinking postulations. What great postulations to have now that we have been changed and shifted, and now we seek to have children of our own. This is the driving thought. This is the driving force behind the gray beings. Humans become angry at them, and many times, how dare you have taken my genetics without my written or verbal or communicative permission, and you have created new life with this. It is an abomination of my Lord, abomination of laws of nature, abominations of science. Yet when you strip away your body, what is left? That electromagnetic form, that part of you that is a soul consciousness that is truly alive, that part of you has agreed to all of this. It is not fair to say just because your soul agreed you should be happy with it, have whatever emotion you want. It is your life and it is best suited to live the way you desire. But we tell you this truth without reasoning, because it is important to know the truth of the gray beings. We are not advocates, we are not even friends in that way. We see them as an integral part of our co-creative sphere. They are as once humans turned, but are relevant to the larger picture of the galaxy, except for you who are humans, except for humanoids who hold DNA that are capable of propagating more gray archetypal beings. So there is a special nature in humans and a special nature in 1,212 races in this galaxy that hold equivalents in DNA of yours, that hold multiple markers of multiple humanoid varieties in multiple dimensions. The DNAs that are golden to those who cannot produce children themselves, but bore physical form from human predecessors. Can you imagine now these beings with eyes half the size of their heads and very small and slim and emotionless slugs who steal you from your bed at night were once the same as you?
I can.
It is hard for most to see this.
It's why I willingly participated in the hybrid program, even though I knew I already said yes on a soul level.
Then you are ahead of many humans, and I give you a congratulate for that, because it is hard for humans to see this most of the time.
I'm happy to help out, but I also understand those that don't want to, or that have changed their minds or have found it traumatic. I understand both sides, but I'm proud to be a part of it.
I believe it to be traumatic to know that without finding races whose DNA is fitting, that your entire race will die. This is also panicking. It is also panicking to be the between. Now let us share what our function is so that you have a better understanding. We have a high threshold for human understanding. We have a high threshold for gray understanding. And even though the way that we come through this human's vessel to communicate would appear counter, we in fact have emotions that are more similar to yours than they are to the gray beings, and a spectrum of emotions that feels deeply, and a spectrum of emotions that feels passionately. And although they are not in the spectral low end of your spectrum, with depression, anger, and homicidal tendencies, they are in fact very much in alignment with your higher, passionate, and excited emotions. This is very counterinductive and counterintuitive to the beings who have mutated themselves to be the grays, but yet they understand our logic side. Our logic side of our consciousness is very strong. It knows the depths of exploration of the self and the universe together. Our race found our way to ourselves by looking outward to the universe. We know humans say that this cannot be done, but it's done all the time. It's done with humans all of the time. Know that you can find an equivalent of yourself either by looking out to the universe or inside to yourself. Both are, in fact, one and the same when you break down the duality parameters that were told to you by other beings, or by your religion masters, or by your extraterrestrial contact beings. This function for us is one that we see not to create a sense of importance with us. We care not for that sense. If all humans hate us, so be it. If all grays hate us, so be it. But the work we do between both of these races feels divine for us. We have come to teach these gray beings about our emotional needs.
Are you not gray yourself, just to clarify?
Yes, we are not gray, to clarify. We are beings who are in envoy, commissary, connectability. We find lacks of real usable human words for what our position is. But we advocate for both of you to one another. We tell you that the grays are more like you than you think, and we tell them how much they don't understand humans. We help create a divine interaction with humans because it, in our perspective, is more important to have the galaxy in balance with connection more than disconnection. If all beings in the galaxy could agree to come together and work together, what a galaxy this could be. To start with two beings who are so similar but so different was the most important job for our group within our race. And our whole race
shines their own lights in approval of our actions to help the relations of humans and gray beings. We have very little time to dive to the complexity which would be needed to fully explain these things, but we will take questions to make a quicker understanding faster.
Sure. I think I'm going to have some clarifying questions, and then hopefully you can describe a little more about your race. So just to clarify, the mutations that happen that cause a being to become what you call a gray being in some instances, do these happen when someone is in the third dimension? Is that something that has to happen? Because my confusion is, how's the mutation happening at a higher density level, and why would it take so long to correct mutations at a higher level when you can instantly manifest stuff at a certain point?
Yes, these are good questions. The mutations often take place in the lower dimension, part of the evolution of that being. In either third or fourth, but fifth and sixth density, consciousness is required to master the art of creating new bodies in lower dimensions. These lower dimensional bodies are not safe havens. They are not permanent vehicles to be run about within. They hold no value long term. They are not sustainable bodies that could reproduce and live for thousands of years. They may live for 100 if they are well built, and if much consciousness goes into it. But especially with the physical bodies that would be required to live upon Earth, such devised place between the spectrum of connection and disconnection, what a hardship this may be. Now, to elaborate with how you have shared this, we do not know if your question has been answered, but imagine yourself being in the body the size of your hand and trying to function in your Earth world with humans with that height. You would not be able to live a fulfilling and full life and reproduce in this way. That is energetically what would be required for these beings to set new bodies. And even with their new bodies created, they are still attached to their old DNA. They must be. Yes, some beings may be able to eject their consciousness from that body and go from temporary form to temporary form, but never be able to reach the level of consciousness required again to create more and newer bodies. So they would be required to clone themselves hundreds of times or thousands of times to simply enjoy the life that they would have had, but also lose a great deal through every cloning process. We don't talk of the copy and copy of copy degradation process humans perceive. We are speaking the sure fact that in the body's death, some form of that consciousness separates from the physical focus consciousness. After cloning yourself 10 times, or cloning 10 bodies and projecting your consciousness, you would not be the same being who started the process. It would be a shell and much smaller form of them.
Yeah, I got this imagery almost of the atomic, subatomic particles even losing interest in doing that, holding that, because the energy's older, wants to go do something new.
That is also correct. You have a strong mind of intuition to see this from the simple words I share.
Thank you. Well, could you give a description, unless I missed it from Aridif, and then sometimes that happens when I'm fiddling with technology and stuff here. Are you humanoid? And could you describe yourself?
Humanoid is a way to perceive it. If you see many of the styles of body that comes in the humanoid context, mostly you see bipedal beings with 2 legs and 2 arms, head that holds 2 eyes, and digits upon the finger that are meant for grasping or holding of sorts as a part of childhood evolution. We have met all those requirements. Our skin is much different than that of the human consciousness or the gray consciousness. Your skin is extremely thin and terrible. Ours is much more thick.
Are you connected to reptilians in any way?
We are not connected to those beings, although those beings have more similar archetypal energy than even that of the gray beings or humans.
So you're not related. You're more related to humans.
Yes, this is most correct, yes.
Okay, I don't want to probe too much. I feel like there's some things you kind of want to keep to yourself, so I'll just respect that.
No,
we're just curious.
Yes,
we like to know who we're connecting to and kind of get a visual and understanding where you're from and what you look like.
Then ask us your question as human, and we will give you the best answer possible. We are not trying to be evasive. We are operating with limitations of time.
Some of the things that matter to humans right now, especially from the perspective that we're in, you can kind of think of us, we're kind of deaf and blind in the grand scheme of the bigger picture. So things that may not matter once you get up to, I'm assuming you're probably at least 4th density or above, and because you feel like you're quite up there, but we need sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. We need a little more I guess input, if you will. I'm sorry, I don't know why I just kind of lost my train of thought. That happens to me sometimes when I'm trying to just humans sometimes need that to connect a little more deeply. Not always. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. I think I lost it again. Sorry. I don't know why I'm having an issue right now with remembering. I guess it doesn't matter as much to you guys because you already connect to all this. You already know all of this kind of stuff. You can kind of instantly pick up on stuff, whereas with us it can be a little more challenging, and so sometimes we can get a little bit mental, like, but maybe that's our problem. Maybe we need to connect more through the heart to see. But there are a lot of artists also that are listening who would probably love to get a description, because the artwork, when we're meditating upon that, some of us like to, if you're wanting us to connect directly to you or to your race, it does help to have art. It does help to have a descriptor because it creates a point of focus. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Which, even within the thought, can help to connect to heart as well. Mm-hmm. That's part of why it's so important to humans to kind of know, there's this, we're taught at school who, what, when, where, and why. These things help us to create a point of focus so that we can connect more deeply. But it's kind of like something that helps someone who's essentially blind explore the world with senses that are duller than most of these beings we're connecting to in the universe at the moment. Does that make sense?
Yes. For those reasons, we give you the quick description to help you with this. Description is of medium form, human height, approximately 4.7 to 5.25 inch, and also very large in frame of bodies, and also having human looks of 2 eyes and 2 nostrils and 1 mouth. Our eyes hold much more inside of them with high levels of light input, and also the extreme form of muscular upon a structure. So human perspective would be extremely short, and the word I'm looking for, stout or stocky, and of course with the larger forms of eyes, the skin tone goes through multitudes of colors, starting from the palest light green to the darkest of glowing blue, and these are 7 color forms.
And you all have hair or any things like that?
Some are the human beings that you would understand as having.
Thank you so much for sharing. I know that, again, that doesn't matter to most people speaking to us, but it does help us a lot to have that point of focus. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Yes, it is nice to have spoken.
It is. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.